Life moves fast, and so should the answers to your biggest questions. Welcome to Endo Batteries Quick Connect, your direct line to expert insights. Short, powerful, and right to the point. You send in the questions, I bring in the experts, and in just 5 minutes, you get the knowledge you need. No long episodes, no extra time needed. And just remember, expert opinions shared here are for general information and not for personalized medical advice. Always consult your provider for your case-specific guidance. Got a question? Send it in, and let's quickly get you the answers. I'm your host, Alana, and it's time to connect. Today, I am joined by my guest, Dr. Sarah Cohen Solomon, a board-certified pediatrician and specialist in hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and related conditions, including POTS, MCAS, and dysautonomia. But what makes her perspective especially powerful is that she's not just a physician, she's also a patient. After years of navigating chronic pain, misdiagnoses, and medical gaslighting herself, Dr. Cohen Solomon now combines clinical expertise with lived experience to deliver truly whole person care. Her work is reshaping how we understand and treat complex, often overlooked conditions, especially in kids who are too often dismissed. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Sarah Cohen Solomon to the table. You know, we talk about the support in the doctor's office and how to approach it there, but I think something that many of us as parents and, people that have walked through this, that we struggle with is how do we help our kids when they are hypermobile and they need help and support in school? And this applies to those with endometriosis,
yes,
hypermobility spectrum disorders of any range, and especially for those that are on the autism spectrum, ADHD, or whatever the case is, like, how do we support them in their growing and learning environment? What are some practical tools that we can, as parents and teachers or educators, do for these students?
I love this subject. It's so important. So, where to begin? So first and foremost, I think one of the main things to recognize is that the process of obtaining accommodations can actually be so helpful for learning how and when to voice your own needs and advocate for yourself through the process of obtaining accommodations. Because the goal and the experience is often that you then learn that you're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to have your individual needs met. Now, oftentimes, unfortunately, because resources are scarce and there's a lot of misunderstanding, too frequently people end up having to fight for their accommodations, and that's the bad lesson. But then you learn to be able to do it, because you might need to be able to do it in the future. So it's still a good skill to have. But one of the things that if you all learn one thing from me today, accommodations, getting an accommodation in a public school setting, you do not need to have a formal diagnosis of anything in order to qualify for an accommodation. So if we're talking about a 504 plan specifically, these are plans that have to do with addressing medical issues or symptoms that arise that are chronic. So it's not like a broken leg that's going to go away. This is something expected to hang around, which is, by the way, distinct from an IEP plan that has to do with adjusting educational goals and outcomes based on what an individual might need. And there's absolutely overlap between the two, which confuses everybody. But the 504 plan is usually where my purview is, because we're talking about things that affect mobility, getting up and back to class, classrooms being difficult on the physical functioning of your body, cold air in the classroom, hot air in the classroom, allergies in the classroom. That all is under the umbrella of a 504 plan. But also, so is extended test time, which is what we hear about more. But the most important point I absolutely must make is that if you have chronic symptoms that are disrupting an element of daily functionality, you are entitled to a 504 plan, or at least getting evaluated for a 504 plan. You do not need a formal diagnosis. You need symptoms. And unfortunately, a lot of schools, I think with the best of intentions, I hope, but a lot of the time that understanding is missed. And so schools insist on having a physician who has finalized the diagnosis before they're willing to give a full evaluation for a 504 plan. That is not how the law works. I am not a legal expert, so I should be careful how I say that, but that I know. And so what people need to understand is that if your child is struggling, and I'd love it if accommodations were in place before a child struggles, That is a
Right.
long-term goal. But if you're seeing that your child is struggling because of physical symptoms or even emotional symptoms, whatever it is, you can and should have an evaluation for whether accommodations are appropriate and what those might be. Now, you can look online. I'll be able to post some on my own website shortly, but you can look online for 504 plan like templates.
Okay.
And, step-by-step instructions on how to get one, what to ask the school for. But basically, if you go into the school with a letter that says, I have these concerns about these symptoms that my child is experiencing, you don't need a diagnosis. You just send them that letter, you get it signed and dated, and they are required by law to evaluate. Now, it might not land the way you want it to land, but that's how you start the process. And it is so important to know that and so important to be able to get those resources moving and grooving. I can't emphasize it enough.
That's a wrap for this Quick Connect. I hope today's insights helped you move forward with more clarity and confidence. Do you have more questions? Keep them coming. Send them in, and I'll bring you the expert answers. You can send them in by using the link in the top of the description of this podcast episode or by emailing contact@endobattery.com or visiting the endobattery.com contact page. Until next time, keep feeling empowered through knowledge.